Welcome back, everyone, to another exploration in our Wisdom of the Scholastic series.
It's great to be back.
Today, we're looking into the thought of William of Ockham, a really towering figure from the 14th century. And if you enjoy these explorations, do remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and maybe click that notification bell so you don't miss future ones.
Absolutely. And today, our mission really is to unpack some of Ockham's most, radical ideas about universals. You know, those general terms we use all the time: horse, man, blue.
Right, those common words.
Exactly. And we're drawing from the text you shared, trying to get beyond maybe the dense philosophical jargon and find the surprisingly concrete implications, those aha moments. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below as we go.
Yes, definitely let us know what resonates. We've got excerpts from 3 key sources looking at Ockham's logic and his theory of universals. We'll navigate his arguments, try to understand his key distinctions, and see why his ideas were, frankly, so revolutionary, even heretical for some back then.
Quite controversial, yes.
Okay, so let's start with the basic puzzle. This problem of universals. What was the core question everyone was grappling with?
Well, the initial puzzle, as our first source lays out, is pretty fundamental. How can one single term, let's say horse, meaningfully refer to all these different individual horses? You know, they vary in size, color, temperament.
They're all unique individuals.
Precisely. So how does that one word capture something common if all the actual things are distinct?
Okay, and before Ockham, the usual answers involve some kind of shared essence, right? Like a hoarseness that all horses possess.
Exactly. The traditional views ranged a bit. You had Plato's sort of extreme realism. These essences, these forms, exist independently in some other realm entirely.
Separate from the physical world.
Right. And then you had moderate realism, more like Aristotle and Aquinas, arguing that these common natures or essences exist within the individual things, but our minds can abstract them, think about them separately.
So the hoarseness is in the horse, but we can conceptually pull it out.
That's the idea. But Ockham comes along and challenges this whole picture. He fundamentally argues against the existence of any literally common essence that defines what a thing is.
Wow. So what's his alternative then, if there's no common essence?
This is where his nominalism comes in. The core idea really is that only individual things truly exist. Individual substances, you know, this specific horse, that specific person, and their particular qualities. This horse's brown coat, that person's height.
Only particular. So what are universals like horse then? Just labels?
Essentially, yes. For Ockham, universal terms like horse stand for a concept in the mind, not for some shared thing out there in the world.
Ah, okay. So the meaning is tied to the mental concept, not a real-world essence.
Precisely. The meaning isn't fixed by some shared nature, but by the concept that we, by convention mostly, attach the word to.
So how do we form these concepts then? Why do we group certain things together under one concept like horse?
It comes down to perceived similarity. We see individual animals that resemble each other in significant ways, and based on that resemblance, our minds form a general concept. That concept is what the universal term signifies. So we see lots of four-legged neighing creatures. Notice the similarities form a horse concept, and the word refers to that concept, which in turn applies to those individuals. You've got it. It's a mental act of classification based on resemblance, not participation in some common form.
That seems much simpler in a way. Less metaphysical baggage.
That's certainly part of the appeal, and it ties into his famous razor later on. But it does raise questions about objectivity, which Ockham addresses. He's not saying similarities aren't real, just that they don't require positing these extra universal entities.
Okay, now the sources bring up another key distinction. Terms of first and second intention. Let's try to unpack that. What's the difference, and why is it important here?
Right, this is crucial for Ockham. Terms of first intention. These signify things that are not themselves signs. So words like man, Socrates, white, horse, they point to actual individuals or their qualities out there, or concepts of those individuals.
Okay, referring to the stuff of the world, so to speak.
Exactly. Then you have terms of second intention. These signify signs, either mental concepts, intentions of the soul, or conventional signs like spoken or written words, or things that follow from them. Examples would be universal, genus, species, noun, verb.
Ah, so it's like language about the world versus language about language and concept.
That's a great way to put it. First intention is using language. Second intention is reflecting on language or thought itself.
And Ockham thought confusing these was a big part of the problem with universals.
Definitely. He believed that people mistakenly thought that because we have a word like universal, a term of second intention, there must be some strange thing, some universal entity out there that it refers to.
Instead of realizing it just refers to a concept in our minds or a property of a concept.
Precisely. They were treating a term about concepts as if it were a term about extramental reality, a category error, essentially.
Okay, that clarifies things. Now, everyone's heard of Occam's razor. Don't multiply entities beyond necessity. How does that famous principle fit into his argument against universals?
Well, the razor, this principle of parsimony, is central to his whole approach. But it's really important to grasp how he used it. It wasn't just about, wanting fewer things in the universe for neatness' sake.
It wasn't just ontological minimalism.
No, for Occam, it was primarily an epistemological principle. It was about the justification of belief. He argued we're only entitled to assert that something exists if its existence is self-evident, or known through experience, or revealed by God, or logically deduced from one of these.
Okay, so if we don't have that kind of justification for universal essences...
And if we can explain everything we need to explain without them, like how we use general terms by appealing to mental concepts and similarity, then the razor tells us we shouldn't postulate them. They are unnecessary entities.
We're not justified in believing they exist, so we shouldn't.
Exactly. His nominalism provides a simpler, more epistemically grounded explanation.
The sources also touch on his epistemology more broadly, mentioning hints of empiricism. That sounds quite modern for the 14th century.
It really does. Occam made this interesting distinction between just cognitive awareness and actual intellectual assent, judging something to be true. And he had distinguished between intuitive cognition and abstract cognition.
Intuitive and abstract.
Yeah.
What's the difference there?
Intuitive cognition gives us direct, evident knowledge of the existence or non-existence of contingent things we're immediately experiencing. Seeing this book in front of me gives me intuitive cognition of its existence. It grounds fully evident judgments.
Like direct perception.
Right. Abstract cognition, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily depend on the thing existing right now. It deals with concepts more generally and leads to judgments that are often only probable, not fully evident, based on immediate experience alone. He really stressed that our knowledge of the natural world starts with this intuitive cognition, this direct apprehension of existing things.
So knowledge comes from experience, fundamentally. But then there's this bit about God's absolute power. How does that complicate things?
Ah, yes. Occam had a very strong view of God's omnipotence, God's potentia absoluta. He argued that because God is absolutely powerful, God could, in principle, directly cause in us the intuitive cognition of an object, say, a star, even if that star didn't actually exist.
Whoa, so God could make me think I'm seeing a star perfectly realistically, even if there's no star there.
That's the logical possibility Occam entertained. It highlights the radical contingency of the world. Our experiences aren't logically guaranteed to correspond to reality, although naturally, in the ordinary course of events established by God's ordained power, they do.
That's quite a thought. It makes our knowledge seem less certain. And it connects to his denial of necessary causal connections too, right? Which sounds a bit like David Hume centuries later.
It's a fascinating parallel. Occam argued that we only know causal connections through experience. There's no logical contradiction, he thought, in fire not causing heat. We observe that it does, consistently, because that's the order God has established.
But it's not a logically necessary connection. It's based on observation of the contingent order.
Exactly. Experience reveals the natural order, but that order itself depends on God's free choices. It's not fixed by logical necessity in the way essences were thought to fix things.
Okay. Now, the second source introduces an earlier phase in Occam's thought, this distinction between objective and subjective existence, esse objectivum and esse subjectivum. These terms sound familiar, but the meaning seems different.
Yes, the medieval usage is almost the reverse of how we use objective and subjective today. For early Occam, esse objectivum objective existence meant having existence merely as an object of thought, something in the mind, whether it exists outside the mind or not.
So, like, the blueprint for a house in an architect's mind has objective existence.
Precisely. Or a unicorn you're thinking about. Or, more theologically, creatures in God's mind before he created them. They have objective existence. Esse subjectivum, subjects of existence, meant real existence in reality, existing as a substance or in a substance, a subject, independently of being thought about.
So the actual house, once built, has subjective existence. My actual chair has subjective existence.
Correct. Its existence in a subject in the sense of a substance or inhering in one.
But then it says Occam later rejected part of this, specifically the fictum theory. What was that about?
Right. Initially, he thought this objective existence belonged to a kind of mental entity, a sort of mental object or image, which he called a fictum. But later, partly influenced by debates with Walter Chatton and applying his own razor, he decided this fictum was an unnecessary entity.
Ah, the razor strikes again.
Indeed. He came to think that the universal wasn't this intermediate mental object, but simply the act of understanding itself. The act of thinking about horses is what's universal, in the sense that that single act can relate to many individual horses.
So the universality lies in the function of the mental act, not in some separate mental thing.
Exactly. This brings us to his mature view. Universals are acts of understanding. He drew a bit on Avicenna here, the idea that a form or concept in the intellect, while being an individual act in this particular mind, can relate to many things, and that's what makes it universal. It signifies many.
Okay, so every universal is actually a particular mental act happening in an individual mind.
Yes. My concept of dog is my individual mental act, and yours is yours. But both acts are universal in the sense that they naturally signify, or are apt to signify, many individual dogs.
And this ties back to the natural versus conventional signs.
Right. These mental acts, these concepts or intentions of the soul, are natural universals. They naturally signify individuals based on resemblance. Spoken or written words like dog are conventional universals. We just agree to use that sound or mark to stand for the concept, which in turn stands for the dogs.
And he was absolutely firm that these universals are not substances existing outside the mind.
Absolutely adamant. He offered several arguments against that. One powerful one was, if a universal like humanity were a real substance existing somehow apart from individuals, or even within them as a distinct thing, then what happens when you annihilate an individual like Socrates?
Does part of the universal get destroyed?
Exactly. Or if it's one substance shared by all humans, then God couldn't annihilate one human without annihilating all, which seemed absurd and limited God's power. He also argued if universals were substances, then any individual substance, like Socrates, would also be universal, which is contradictory.
Makes sense. And he also took aim at Duns Scotus' idea of a formal distinction, that intermediate kind of distinction.
Yes, Scotus proposed this distinction. It was supposedly between a thing's essence and its individuality, or between different formalities within a thing less than a real distinction between two separate things, but more than just a purely mental distinction. Ockham rejected this. For him, in creatures, any distinction outside the mind had to be a real distinction between distinct things. No halfway house.
Very clear cut. Okay, so we've seen what universals aren't. Let's look at the third source now, focusing on terms and their properties. Ockham had a very precise definition of a term, didn't he?
He did. Logically speaking, a term for Ockham is a proximate part of a proposition, basically. The subject or the predicate, or something that can function that way.
And this fits into his hierarchy of signs. Spoken words signify concepts. Concepts signify things.
Exactly. He maps this out clearly. Utterances, spoken words, are conventional signs subordinated to concepts, intentions of the soul. Concepts are natural signs of extramental things. And written terms are conventional signs subordinated to spoken ones.
And the key difference is that conventional signs' words can change their meaning by human choice, but concepts, being natural signs, can't just arbitrarily change what they represent.
That's a crucial point. The link between a concept and the things it resembles is natural, whereas the link between a word and a concept is arbitrary or conventional. We can decide to use the word blorg to mean dog tomorrow. We can't just make our concept of dog suddenly apply to cats.
Right. He also clarifies the word sign itself.
Yes, he notes it can be used broadly for anything that brings something to mind. But in logic, he's interested in signs in a narrower sense, something that brings something to mind, and is apt to stand for something and proposition apt to have supposition.
Okay. And then he breaks down term into three senses.
Yes, in a typically thorough way. A term can be the copula, is, or an extreme subject-predicate of a standard proposition. Or it could be a determination, like an adjective modifying a noun. Or interestingly, even a whole proposition could function as a term, like being the subject of another sentence.
Then we get into concrete and abstract names, just and justice, for example. It's not just about tangible versus intangible, is it?
No, it's primarily a linguistic distinction based on their form, but he analyzes the different ways they signify. Sometimes the concrete name, white, signifies a subject possessing a quality, while the abstract name, whiteness, signifies the quality itself. Other times it relates part and whole or cause and effect. It's quite nuanced.
In connotative names.
Like white.
Right. Connotative names are important. They signify something primarily, the subject, the thing that is white, and connote or signify secondarily something else, the quality, whiteness. They have a nominal definition that untacks this complex signification. Absolute names, like man or animal in his view, just signify whatever they signify directly without connoting something distinct. And he loops back to first and second imposition and intention, refining them further.
Exactly. Terms of first imposition signify things that aren't signs, conventional or natural. Terms of second imposition signify signs themselves, like noun. And then terms of first intention are concepts signifying non-signs, while terms of second intention are concepts signifying other concepts or conventional signs. It's a framework for analyzing language about the world versus language about language and thought.
It's incredibly detailed. He also mentions only conventional signs can be equivocal or univocal.
Yes, because concepts, being natural signs, have a naturally determined signification. A single concept signifies what it signifies. But a conventional word like bank can be arbitrarily assigned to multiple concepts, riverbank, money bank, making it equivocal, or it can be assigned to just one, making it univocal.
Let's touch on definition and description. Real versus nominal definitions. What's the key difference for Ockham?
A real definition, in the strictest sense, expresses the essential metaphysical components of a substance. For Ockham, these are very rare, perhaps only applicable to substances if we could truly know their essences. A nominal definition simply explains what a word means, its signification. You can give a nominal definition for any term, even chimera or void.
So nominal definitions are about language use. Real definitions are about reality structure, though perhaps unattainable for us in most cases.
Pretty much. He acknowledges different types, like physical and metaphysical definitions, but generally sees the logician's job as guiding how sciences should define things, rather than providing the definitions themselves. And crucially, a definition or description signifies the same thing as the term defined or described, but it isn't identical to it. Rational animal signifies man, but it isn't the same thing as man.
That makes sense, preserving the distinction between language and reality. Okay, finally, let's tackle supposition theory. This sounds like the real nitty-gritty of his logic of terms.
It is. Supposition is about how a term stands for something within the context of a specific proposition. Ockham focuses on the broad sense, where both subject and predicate supposit, or stand for things.
And the main types are personal, simple, and material.
Correct. Personal supposition is the most common. The term stands for the things it signifies. In every dog is an animal, dog stands for individual dogs.
Okay, it's normal meaning.
Right. Simple supposition is when the term stands for the concept or intention of the soul itself, but not significatively. In man as a species, man doesn't stand for individual man, but for the concept man.
It stands for the mental category.
Exactly. And material supposition is when the term stands for the spoken word or written inscription itself. In man has 3 letters, the term man stands for the word itself, not the concept or individual men.
Word is word. Got it. And within personal supposition, there's more complexity, determinate, and confused.
Yes. This deals with how you can infer things about individuals from propositions. With determinate supposition, typically for particular subjects, some man runs, you can descend to a disjunction of singulars. Therefore, this man runs or that man runs or...
Okay, makes sense for some.
With confused supposition, you can't do that simple disjunctive descent. There are 2 types here. Confused and distributive supposition usually happens with universal subjects. Every man is an animal. Here you can descend to a conjunction of singulars. Therefore, this man is an animal and that man is an animal, and it distributes the predicate to all individuals.
Covering all of them.
Right. The other type, merely confused supposition, often applies to predicates in universal affirmatives. Every man is an animal. Here, animal supposits confusedly, but not distributively. You can't infer every man is this animal, nor every man is this animal or that animal. It stands for animals, but in a more indeterminate way, linked to the subject.
That's quite intricate. And tense and modality matter, too.
Absolutely. The tense of the verb runs, ran, will run, or modal words, possibly necessarily, changes the range of things. The terms supposit for present things, past things, future things, possible things. It's a very sophisticated analysis of how terms function in context.
Wow. So putting it all together, Occam's whole logical toolkit seems geared towards an incredibly streamlined view of reality, doesn't it?
It really does. His constant insistence that only individuals exist and that universals are fundamentally names, or more precisely, mental acts or concepts, this had huge implications.
Right.
It changed how people thought about language, how we gain knowledge, even theological doctrines.
And that razor It's not just a historical curiosity. You can see its relevance today, questioning if we're multiplying concepts or explanations unnecessarily in science, philosophy, even everyday life.
Absolutely. And his focus on experience, the contingency of the natural order, the careful analysis of language, these themes resonate strongly with later empiricism and analytical philosophy. His work on how terms get their meaning and refer within propositions is still incredibly relevant.
This exploration into Occam within the wisdom of the scholastic series really just scratches the surface, I feel. There's so much depth there.
There truly is. We really hope this gives you, our listeners, some food for thought, and maybe encourages you to delve deeper into Occam's writings or secondary sources. Consider how his rigorous approach might challenge or clarify your own ways of thinking.
Definitely. And if you found this discussion insightful, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click the notification bell.
And please share your thoughts, questions, or what particularly stood out to you in the comment section below. We genuinely enjoy reading your perspectives and engaging with them.
Thank you so much for joining us for this look into William of Ockham. Until next time in the Wisdom of the Scholastic series, again, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and let us know your thoughts below.